The medical bay was cold and quiet except for the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Zekthor lay on the reinforced bed, his gray-scaled body covered in bandages and healing patches. His forearms were restrained, not with chains or metal cuffs, but with soft straps that didn't hurt his skin. This confused him more than anything else. The door opened with a soft hiss. 2 humans entered the room. The male wore a dark blue uniform with silver bars on his shoulders. The female wore white medical clothing and carried a data pad. Zekthor's black eyes tracked their movements, waiting for the pain to begin. "I am Commander Jake Morrison," the male said in a calm voice. "This is Dr. Lisa Grant. We need to ask you some questions." Zekthor said nothing. His translator chip converted their words into his language, but he didn't want to give them anything. In his culture, prisoners were tortured until they talked. He prepared himself for what was coming. Instead, Lisa stepped forward and checked the monitors near his bed. She made small adjustments to the IV line feeding medication into his system. Her touch was gentle, careful not to cause pain. "Your internal injuries are healing well," she said softly. "The broken ribs should mend in another week. Does anything hurt right now?" This was wrong. All of this was wrong. Zekthor's mandibles clicked nervously. "Why do you care if I hurt? I am your enemy." Lisa looked at him with those strange human eyes full of an emotion he didn't understand. "Because you're in pain." "That's enough reason." Jake pulled up a chair and sat down near the bed. He didn't loom over Zekthor or try to intimidate him. He just sat there, relaxed, like they were about to have a normal conversation. "We pulled you from the wreckage of your ship 3 days ago," Jake said. "You were the only survivor from your fleet. Do you remember what happened?" Zekthor did remember. Every terrible moment of it was burned into his mind. His mandibles trembled as the memories flooded back. 30 ships. They had brought 30 warships to crush 1 human colony. It should have been easy. "We studied you," Zekthor said quietly. "For months we intercepted your transmissions. We watched your entertainment, listened to your communications. We saw how you argue among yourselves, how you value individual lives, how you show weakness through emotion." Jake leaned forward slightly. "And what did you conclude?" "That you were soft. Easy to conquer." Zekthor's voice dropped even lower. "The High Command said you would be our 18th species. We had defeated 17 others across 40 systems. We had never lost." Lisa sat down on the other side of the bed. "What changed your mind?" Zekthor looked at the ceiling, his eyes reflecting the cold lights above. "We attacked Proxima Station, a mining colony with 8,000 civilians. One of your ships was there. Just 1 cruiser against our fleet of 30. We thought it would run away. Prey always runs when faced with superior numbers. But it didn't run," Jake said. "It wasn't a question. No. Your captain put her ship between us and the station. She stood alone against impossible odds." Zekthor's breathing quickened as he remembered. "In Vakrine military doctrine, this is suicide. It is wasteful. It is foolish. 1 ship cannot defeat 30. The logical action is to retreat. Preserve your forces. Fight another day. Humans don't always think logically when people we care about are in danger," Lisa said softly. Zekthor turned his head to look at her. "Yes, we learned this." "Your captain's name was Nicole Hayes. She broadcasted to the station constantly during the battle. We heard every word. She told the civilians to evacuate, told them not to be afraid, told them her crew would buy them time." Jake's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained steady. "Tell me about the battle." "It was not a battle. It was a nightmare." Zekthor's 4 hands clenched into fists, pulling against the soft restraints. "We fired on your ship with enough weapons to destroy it 10 times over. It took the hits and kept fighting. Sections of the hull were breached, open to vacuum, and still your crew worked to keep the weapons firing." Lisa checked her data pad, scrolling through information. The Valiant's damage reports show that 70% of the ship was exposed to space by the end. Most of the crew was working in sections with no life support. "We could not understand it," Zekthor continued. "In our fleet, if a ship is damaged that badly, the crew abandons it. They save themselves. But your people stayed at their posts. They kept fighting even when they knew they would die." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars drifted past as the Endeavor moved through space. "How many of your ships did the Valiant destroy?" 15. The number came out like a confession. 15 ships with full crews, destroyed by 1 damaged human cruiser that should have been dead after the first volley. "Your tactics made no sense," You rammed us. You overloaded your own systems to create explosions that damaged both ships. You fired weapons at ranges so close that you guaranteed mutual destruction. We call those desperate measures, Jake said, still looking out the window. We use them when we're protecting something more important than our own lives. Zekthor's voice became almost a whisper. Your captain died when the bridge took a direct hit. We monitored your communications. We heard the confusion, heard the chain of command fall apart. We thought you would finally surrender. But we didn't, Lisa said. No. A junior officer took command. Lieutenant Paul Carter. He was 24 cycles old. In my culture, he would still be in training. He was working in a maintenance shaft when the bridge exploded. Zekthor's eyes closed. His first order was to redirect all power to engines and weapons. He shut down life support across the entire ship. The room fell silent except for the monitoring equipment. Jake turned from the window, his face carefully neutral. Go on. The 300 humans still alive had minutes of air left. Carter told them what he was planning. He was going to ram the flagship. Every single human would die. We waited for someone to object, to refuse, to try to save themselves. Zekthor opened his eyes and looked directly at Jake. Not one human said no. Not one tried to escape. They all agreed to die together. Lisa's hand trembled slightly as she made notes on her data pad. The Valiant bought the evacuation transports 4 more minutes before impact. 4 minutes, Zekthor repeated. 300 lives for 4 minutes. And in those 4 minutes, 8,000 civilians escaped to jump distance. Your people traded their lives at a ratio we could never comprehend. Jake walked back to the chair and sat down slowly. You said earlier that we were wrong about what we are. What did you mean? Zekthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep distress in his species. We thought emotion made you weak. We thought caring for individuals was a tactical disadvantage. We thought your unwillingness to sacrifice populations for victory meant you could not fight effectively. And now, Jake asked, now I understand that we were looking at everything backwards. Your emotions do not make you weak. They make you the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Zekthor's voice filled with something that might have been fear or respect or both. You do not fight to win. You fight for each other, and there is no force in the universe that can break that. The room fell quiet again. Lisa finished her notes and stood up. I'll be back in a few hours to check on you. If you need anything for pain, just press the button by your hand. As they walked toward the door, Zekthor called out,
Why are you treating me with kindness?
I came to conquer your people. Jake paused at the doorway and looked back. Because you're injured and alone, far from home. That's enough reason. He repeated Lisa's words from earlier and then added, and because we want you to go home and tell your people exactly what happened here. Tell them what humans are really capable of when you threaten what we love. The door closed behind them, leaving Zekthor alone with his thoughts and the terrifying realization that humanity was nothing like what his empire had believed. The medical bay was quiet except for Zekthor's voice. Jake Morrison sat very still, listening to the alien describe the death of 300 humans. Lisa Grant had stopped taking notes on her datapad. She just listened, her face pale. Your people chose to die, Zekthor said, his 4 hands trembling against the restraints, all of them. We monitored every communication from that ship. We heard Lieutenant Carter give the order. We heard every crew member acknowledge it. Not one human tried to escape. Not one begged for their life. They just accepted it. Jake's jaw was tight, but his voice stayed calm. They weren't accepting death. They were choosing what to die for. Zekthor's black eyes focused on Jake with an intensity that was almost painful. Yes, this is what we failed to understand about your species. We thought you fought to win battles. But you don't. You fight for something else. Something we have no word for in our language. What would you call it? Lisa asked softly. In our study of your culture, we found a word you use. Purpose. Your people fight with purpose. The Valiant's purpose was not to defeat our fleet. Its purpose was to protect those 8,000 civilians. Every action, every tactic, every sacrifice was about that purpose. Zekthor shifted on the bed, wincing as his injuries pulled. Lisa stood up automatically, checking his monitors, but he waved her away with one hand. Let me finish. You need to understand what happened next. After the Valiant destroyed the flagship and 14 other ships remained. We were damaged, confused, but still militarily superior. We pursued the evacuation transports. Jake leaned forward. Those were unarmed civilian ships. Yes, we expected easy targets. Helpless refugees running for their lives. This is when we would recoup our losses. When we would show humans the price of resistance. Zekthor's mandibles clicked rapidly. We were wrong again. So terribly wrong. Lisa sat back down, her hands clasped tightly together. What happened? The civilian ships fought back. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, personal transports, all of them turned and engaged us. They had no military weapons, but they improvised. They vented refined metals into space, creating debris clouds that damaged our ships. They overloaded their industrial mining lasers and used them as weapons. Zekthor paused, his breathing shallow. The memory clearly disturbed him deeply. One cargo hauler carrying nothing but supplies rammed one of our destroyers. The impact destroyed both ships. 400 humans died in that collision, but it gave the other transports time to spread out, to make us divide our forces. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Humans don't have a military class separate from civilians. We're all taught basic combat skills, basic first aid, basic survival techniques. It's part of our education. We know that now, Zekthor said bitterly. We interpreted it as barbarism. We thought you were a primitive species that hadn't evolved past your violent nature. Now I understand that you never forgot what it means to survive. Every other species we conquered had become soft, comfortable. They had forgotten how to fight because they hadn't needed to for generations. Lisa pulled up data on her pad, scrolling through reports. The civilian transports fought for 2 hours. They destroyed 3 Vakreen ships and damaged 5 more. 2 hours, Zekthor repeated. 2 hours of civilians using mining equipment and cargo vessels to fight warships. Your people coordinated their movements with military precision. They used tactics, strategies, formations. These were miners and families, but they fought like trained soldiers. Because in a way they are, Jake said, still looking out the window. Every human understands that sometimes you have to fight. We teach our children that freedom isn't free, that safety isn't guaranteed. We remember our history, all the times we had to fight to survive. Zekthor shifted his position carefully. One of your transport ships was damaged, losing engine power. It couldn't escape. The captain broadcasted to the other ships, told them to keep running, not to come back. Do you know what happened? Neither Jake nor Lisa answered. They waited. 5 other transports turned around. 5 ships came back into the combat zone to rescue 1 damaged transport. They formed a defensive circle around it, covering it while repair crews worked on the engines. We destroyed 2 of those ships. 800 humans died protecting that 1 damaged transport. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. Did they save it? Yes. The repairs were completed and all remaining transports escaped. But the cost? Zekthor's voice trailed off. In Vakreen military doctrine, you never sacrifice multiple assets to save one. It's wasteful. It's inefficient. But you humans do it every time. You always go back for each other. Jake turned from the window, his face hard. Because that's who we are. We don't leave people behind. We don't calculate if a rescue is worth the cost. We just do it. This is what makes you terrifying, Zekthor said. Not your weapons, not your ships, not your technology. It's this refusal to abandon each other. This willingness to die for others. We have conquered 17 species. None of them had this. None of them fought the way you fight. Lisa stood up and checked Zekthor's IV again, adjusting the flow. Her hands were steady now, back in doctor mode. Your people made decisions based on logic and military advantage. We make decisions based on what we believe is right. Yes. And what you believe is right is incredibly dangerous to anyone who threatens you. Zekthor looked at the ceiling, his alien features somehow expressing exhaustion. When your reinforcements arrived, we tried to retreat. The fleet vessel. Courageous and 6 escort ships jumped into the system. They were fresh, undamaged, and we were crippled. Why didn't you fight? Jake asked. You still had ships left. Because we finally understood that fighting humans is not like fighting other species. Every battle has a cost that cannot be measured in ships or weapons. It's measured in will, in determination, in the willingness to pay any price. Zekthor closed his eyes. My ship's engines were destroyed. We couldn't run. The captain gave an order I never thought I would hear from a Vakreen commander. He ordered us to surrender. The silence in the room was heavy. Jake and Lisa both understood what that meant. In Vakreen culture, surrender was shameful, cowardly. Warriors were supposed to die fighting. The captain saved our lives, Zekthor continued. He chose shame over death. And when your people boarded our ship, they didn't kill us. They didn't torture us. They gave us medical care and treated our wounds. This confused us more than anything else in the battle. Lisa sat down again, tired. We treat prisoners according to established rules of war. It's not mercy. It's law. No, Zekthor said firmly. It is mercy. Your laws exist because your people chose mercy. You could have killed us all. No one would have blamed you after what we did, but you chose to heal us instead. Jake walked back to his chair and sat down. You said earlier that you wanted to tell us something, that your people needed to know the truth. What truth? Zekthor opened his eyes and looked directly at Jake. The truth that humanity is not prey. You are predators who learn to care for each other. You are warriors who never forgot how to be kind. You are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy because you combine violence with compassion, and no one knows how to fight against that. We don't want to be dangerous, Lisa said quietly. We want peace. I believe you. But peace requires both sides to choose it. My empire chose war. We chose to attack you because we thought you were weak. Zekthor's mandibles clicked in what might have been the Vacrine equivalent of a bitter laugh. Now I must return home and tell them what we really found. Not weak prey, but something that will fight until there is nothing left to fight with. Jake stood up slowly. We'll continue this tomorrow. You need rest. As Jake and Lisa walked to the door, Zekthor called out one more time. Commander Morrison. Dr. Grant, thank you for your kindness. In my culture, this makes you weak. In your culture, I am learning it makes you strong. I do not know which is true. Jake paused at the door and looked back. Maybe both are true. Maybe that's what you really can't understand about us. We're strong enough to be kind and kind enough to know when to be strong. The door closed behind them. In the corridor outside, Lisa leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. Do you think his people will listen to him? Will they understand? Jake looked down the corridor toward the bridge. I don't know. But he's going to try. And maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice before attacking another human colony. And if they don't, Jake's expression was grim, then they'll learn the lesson the hard way. Proxima Station was one colony. The Valiant was one ship. We have thousands of colonies and thousands of ships, and every single human will fight like those people fought. They walked down the corridor in silence, both of them thinking about the 300 crew members of the Valiant who chose to die together, rather than let civilians be harmed. Both of them wondering if humanity's greatest strength might also be its greatest tragedy. 3 weeks earlier, the Vacrine fleet dropped out of jump space at the edge of the Proxima system. 30 warships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. Fleet Commander Thazakor stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Proxima Station appeared on the screen, a small mining colony orbiting a red dwarf star. Intelligence reports showed 8,000 humans living there, mostly miners and their families. One human cruiser, the Valiant, was docked at the station for routine maintenance. A perfect target, Thazakor said to his weapons officer. That weapons officer was Zekthor, younger then, full of confidence in his empire's superiority. We will crush them quickly and move on to the next system. The fleet began its approach, weapons charging, shields at maximum. Standard Vacrine doctrine called for overwhelming force and rapid elimination of any military presence. Civilians would be dealt with after resistance was eliminated. On the Valiant, alarms screamed through every corridor. Captain Nicole Hayes ran onto the bridge, her brown hair still wet from the shower she'd been taking. Her crew scrambled to their stations, many of them still in casual clothes because they'd been on shore leave. Report, Nicole snapped, dropping into the captain's chair. 30 hostile contacts, her tactical officer called out. Vacrine signatures. They're charging weapons. Nicole's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Her ship was still connected to the station by docking clamps. Half her crew was on the station. Her weapons weren't even powered up yet. Cut the docking clamps, she ordered. All hands to battle stations. Get me a channel to the station commander now. The Valiant shuddered as explosive bolts blew the docking clamps apart. The cruiser drifted free of the station, its engines coming online with a deep rumble that vibrated through the hull. Station Commander Greg Palmer's face appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and worry lines around his eyes. Captain Hayes, we're reading 30 Vacrine warships on approach. We have no weapons, no shields. We're completely defenseless. I know, Greg. I need you to start evacuation procedures right now. Get every civilian onto the transport ships. Don't wait, don't hesitate. Just go. What about you? Greg asked, though he already knew the answer. Nicole looked at her crew. Young faces, scared faces, but determined faces. Not one of them looked like they wanted to run. We're going to buy you time. Just make it count, the channel closed. Nicole turned to her pilot. Put us between the station and that fleet. All power to forward shields. The Valiant moved into position, one small cruiser facing 30 warships. On the Vakrine flagship, Thazkor watched this maneuver with amusement. The human ship positions itself to protect the station, he observed. How noble. How pointless. Zekthor, calculate the time to destroy that ship. Zekthor ran the numbers through his tactical computer. At current firepower, 30 seconds, Commander. Perhaps less. Target their engines first. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We will board them and learn about human military capabilities before we kill them. The Vakrine fleet opened fire. 30 ships, hundreds of weapons, all focused on one target. Space lit up with energy beams and missile trails. The Valiant's shields flared bright white as they absorbed the incoming fire. On the Valiant's bridge, the lights flickered. Console screens cracked. The ship groaned under the assault. Forward shields down to 40%, the tactical officer shouted over the noise. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 5. Nicole's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Return fire. All weapons. Show them what we've got. The Valiant's railguns opened up, firing solid slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. Missiles launched from tubes along the hull. Energy weapons carved through space. The human ship wasn't trying to destroy the fleet. It was trying to make them work for their victory. A Vakrine destroyer took a railgun slug straight through its main reactor. The ship exploded in a flash of white light. Another Vakrine ship lost its bridge to a missile impact. It drifted out of formation, dead in space. On the flagship, Zekthor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Commander, we've lost 2 ships. Impossible, Thazkor said. Continue firing. The battle became a brutal exchange. The Vakrine fleet poured fire into the Valiant while the human ship fought back with everything it had. Human damage control teams worked in sections open to vacuum, wearing emergency suits, repairing systems while weapons fire flew past them. Nicole broadcast to the station constantly. Her voice, calm and steady, told the civilians that they were going to be okay, that the Valiant would hold, that they just needed to get to the transports. All ships, this is the Valiant. We're holding them off. Keep loading civilians. Keep moving. Every second counts. The human ship started using tactics that made no sense to the Vakrine. When shields failed on one side, the Valiant rotated to present fresh armor. When weapons overheated, the crew vented coolant directly into space and kept firing. When a Vakrine ship got too close, the Valiant rammed it, using its own hull as a weapon. Zekthor watched a Vakrine cruiser get torn in half by a ramming attack. The Valiant's bow was crushed, but the ship backed away and kept shooting with its remaining weapons. They're insane, Zekthor whispered. Another Vakrine ship exploded. Then another. The human ship was dying, anyone could see that. Entire sections were gone, blown away by weapons fire. Fires burned in compartments open to space, but the Valiant kept fighting. On the bridge, Nicole checked the evacuation status. 6 minutes had passed. The transports were loading, but they needed more time to reach minimum safe jump distance. Captain, life support is failing on decks 1 through 7, her engineer reported. We're down to 30% hull integrity. We can't take much more. We don't need to take much more, Nicole said quietly. We just need to give them a few more minutes. A massive explosion rocked the ship. The tactical officer looked up from his console, blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. Direct hit to engineering. We've lost main power, running on backup batteries. Nicole smiled, and it was a sad, tired smile. Then we use every bit of power those batteries have. Redirect everything to weapons. Life support, artificial gravity, everything. All of it goes to weapons. Her first officer, a young woman named Beth Clark, looked at the captain. Ma'am, if we do that, we'll only have minutes of air. I know. But those transports need 4 more minutes to reach jump distance. Nicole looked around at her crew. Anyone who wants to evacuate to the station still has time. Take an escape pod. No one will think less of you. Nobody moved. Not one person left their station. Well then, Nicole said, her voice strong despite everything. Let's make these last few minutes count. The Valiant fired everything it had left. With no power going to shields or life support, every weapon fired at maximum capacity. 3 more Vakrine ships died in rapid succession. The fleet's neat formation dissolved into chaos as ships tried to avoid the dying human cruiser that fought like a wounded animal. Then the bridge took a direct hit. The entire front section of the Valiant exploded. Nicole Hayes died instantly along with most of her senior staff. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing off the destroyed sections. The ship went dark and silent. On the Vakrine flagship, Thazakor allowed himself a moment of relief. Finally, the human ship is dead. Move forward and finish the station. But then something impossible happened. The Valiant's engines fired. The dead ship came back to life. Deep in a maintenance shaft near engineering, Lieutenant Paul Carter pulled himself up to a working console. He was 24 years old, covered in blood from cuts and burns, and he'd just heard his captain die over the comm system. "This is Lieutenant Carter," he said over the ship-wide channel. His voice shook, but it was clear. "I'm taking command. All remaining personnel report status." Voices came back over the comm. 300 people scattered across the dying ship, all of them still at their posts. Paul looked at the readouts on his console. Life support was gone. They had maybe 5 minutes of air left in their suits. The evacuation transports needed 4 more minutes to reach safe jump distance. Paul made his decision. "All hands, this is the captain. Redirect all remaining power to engines and forward weapons. We're going to ram the flagship." There was a moment of silence. Then, one by one, every crew member acknowledged the order. Not one person objected. Not one person tried to save themselves. They all knew what this meant. "Valiant to Proxima Station transports," Paul broadcast. "You're clear. Evacuation complete. Jump when ready, Godspeed." The Valiant's engines roared to full power. The battered, broken ship accelerated straight toward the Vakrine flagship. Thazakor screamed orders to his crew, trying to maneuver away, but it was too late. The Valiant hit the flagship at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the Proxima system like a new sun. 300 humans died in that impact. They died together, they died fighting, and they died to save 8,000 people they'd sworn to protect. On his damaged cruiser, Zekthor watched the explosion fade and felt something he'd never experienced before. It wasn't fear. It wasn't respect. It was the terrible understanding that his people had made a catastrophic mistake. They hadn't attacked a weak species. They'd attacked something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Admiral Frank Holland stood in his office aboard the command station, reading Jake Morrison's full report. The Admiral was an older man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He'd been in the military for 35 years and thought he'd seen everything. This report proved him wrong. Jake and Lisa sat across from his desk waiting. They'd spent 3 more days interviewing Zekthor, getting every detail about the Vakrine Empire, their military structure, their culture, and their intentions toward humanity. Frank set down the data pad and looked at them. 30 ships destroyed, 300 crew members dead on the Valiant, another 1,000 civilians killed in the transport fighting. And this Zekthor says his empire has hundreds more ships ready to attack us. "Yes, sir," Jake said. "The Vakrine control 40 systems with billions of citizens. They have a massive military infrastructure built over centuries of conquest. Proxima Station was just their first probe. They'll send more." Lisa leaned forward. But Admiral, Zekthor also said something important. His people didn't understand what they were attacking. They saw our broadcasts, our entertainment, our culture. They completely misinterpreted what they saw. Frank stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the command station orbited a blue-green planet, peaceful and quiet. Hard to believe that somewhere out there an empire of aliens was planning humanity's destruction. "Explain their misunderstanding," Frank said. Jake pulled up files on his pad. "The Vakrine studied our transmissions for months. They watched our movies, our news, our social media. They saw humans arguing with each other, debating politics, showing emotions. They interpreted this as weakness. They saw we value individual lives," Lisa added. "They saw we have rules about warfare, about treating prisoners humanely, about protecting civilians. In their culture, these things are considered soft and inefficient." Frank turned from the window. "But they learned different at Proxima Station." "Yes, sir," Jake said. "They learned that our emotions don't make us weak. They make us incredibly dangerous. When you threaten someone we care about, we don't calculate odds or consider tactical advantage. We just fight." Lisa opened her own files. I've been studying the Vakrine psychology based on my interviews with Zekthor. They're a highly logical species. They make decisions based on cost-benefit analysis. They conquer other species by demonstrating overwhelming force, which causes the prey species to surrender. But humans don't think that way, Frank said. It wasn't a question, no sir. When humans see overwhelming force threatening people we love, we don't surrender. We fight harder. The Vakrine don't have a concept for this. In their entire history of conquest, they've never encountered a species that fought more desperately when losing. Frank sat back down at his desk and pulled up tactical displays. What else did you learn about their military? Jake scrolled through his notes. They have a highly structured command system. Orders come from the top down. Individual initiative is discouraged. They fight in standard formations with standard tactics. They're very good at what they do, but they're predictable. Humans aren't predictable, Frank observed. That's exactly what Zekthor said, sir. He said the Valiant used tactics that made no sense. Ramming attacks, mutual destruction, fighting in damaged sections open to space. The Vakrine couldn't predict what Captain Hayes would do next because she wasn't following any doctrine they understood. Lisa added, and when the civilians fought back using mining equipment and cargo ships, the Vakrine were completely unprepared. They'd never seen non-military personnel engage in combat. In their empire, there's a strict separation between warriors and civilians. Frank nodded slowly, thinking, because they're conquerors. They have a warrior class that fights, and they have conquered populations that serve them. But humans don't work that way, no sir. Every human is a potential combatant. We teach survival skills to children. We train everyone in basic first aid. We make sure people understand that freedom requires vigilance. The Vakrine saw this as primitive barbarism, when actually it's practical wisdom, Frank said. We remember our history. We know that peaceful times don't last forever. Jake stood up and walked to the tactical display. Admiral, there's something else. Zekthor told us about the other species the Vakrine conquered. 17 civilizations across 40 systems. None of them fought back effectively. Most surrendered after the first major battle. Why? Frank asked. Because they'd forgotten how to fight. They'd had generations of peace, of prosperity. When the Vakrine arrived with overwhelming force, these species calculated that resistance was futile. They surrendered to save lives. Lisa's voice was soft but firm. Humanity will never do that. We've had our share of peace, but we've never forgotten war. We keep our military strong. We remember our history. We teach our children that some things are worth fighting for. Frank looked at both of them. The Vakrine made a fundamental mistake about us. Yes, sir, Jake said. They thought our compassion was weakness. They didn't understand that caring about each other is exactly what makes us so dangerous. The Valiant crew didn't die because they were ordered to. They died because they chose to protect people they cared about. The same with the civilian transports, Lisa added. Those people fought with mining lasers and cargo ships because they were protecting their families, their friends, their neighbors. The Vakrine had never seen that kind of motivation before. Frank was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he asked, what does Zekthor think will happen now? Jake and Lisa looked at each other. Jake answered, he thinks the Vakrine High Command will send a larger fleet. They'll see Proxima Station as a failure that needs to be corrected. They'll come with 100 ships next time, maybe more. And they'll lose again, Frank said flatly. Probably, sir. But more humans will die. More ships will be destroyed. The Vakrine don't know how to back down from a fight. Their entire culture is built on conquest and domination. Frank stood up and walked to his desk. He picked up a datapad and made some notes. What is Zekthor's physical condition? Lisa answered, he's healing well. Another week and he'll be fit for travel. Good. Frank set down the pad and looked at them both. I want him sent home. Jake's eyes widened. Sir? He's our only source of intelligence on the Vakrine Empire. He knows their fleet dispositions, their tactics, their leadership structure. He's incredibly valuable. I know, Frank said calmly. That's exactly why we're sending him home. Lisa understood first. You want him to tell them what happened? Yes. Right now, the Vakrine High Command is getting reports from their fleet. They know they lost 30 ships, but they don't know why. They don't understand what went wrong. They'll blame incompetent commanders or faulty intelligence. They'll send a bigger fleet. Jake was starting to understand. But if Zekthor goes home and tells them the truth, then maybe, just maybe, some of them will think twice. Frank finished. Maybe they'll realize that conquering humanity isn't worth the cost. And if they don't listen? Lisa asked. Frank's expression was hard. Then they'll learn the hard way. But at least we will have tried. We'll have given them a chance to choose peace. Jake sat back down slowly. This is a risk, sir. We're releasing valuable intelligence back to the enemy. I know, but keeping Zekthor here doesn't stop the war. It just delays it. If we send him home with the truth about what humans are capable of, we might prevent future battles. We might save lives on both sides. Lisa nodded. Zekthor wants to tell his people. He said as much during the interviews. He feels responsible for what happened. He wants to prevent more Vakreen deaths. Then we let him try, Frank said. Prepare him for transport. Give him medical supplies, food, everything he needs. And give him a message. What kind of message, sir? Jake asked. Frank smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. A message that explains exactly what will happen if the Vakreen continue their war against humanity. A message that makes it very clear what we're capable of when someone threatens our people. A warning, Lisa said. Yes, a warning. And a final offer of peace. Frank looked at them both. Because that's what humans do. We offer kindness first. We try diplomacy, try understanding. But if that fails, if someone forces us to fight, then they learn what the valiant crew already showed them. That humans protect their own, no matter the cost, Jake said quietly. Exactly. Now go, prepare Zekthor for departure, and make sure he understands that he's not just a prisoner being released. He's a messenger. He's carrying humanity's response to the Vakreen Empire. Jake and Lisa stood up and saluted. As they walked to the door, Frank called after them. One more thing. Make sure the message includes footage from Proxima Station. Let the Vakreen see what happened. Let them see Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Carter, and all those civilians fighting with mining equipment. Let them see what they're really up against. Yes, sir, they both said together. As they walked down the corridor, Lisa said quietly, Do you think it will work? Jake thought about 300 people choosing to die together. He thought about civilians fighting warships with mining lasers. He thought about everything Zekthor had said about humanity being the most dangerous species in the galaxy. I don't know, he said finally. But the Admiral is right. We have to try. We have to give them a chance to walk away. The departure bay was cold and echoed with the sound of machinery. Zekthor stood beside a small automated shuttle, his injuries mostly healed, his forearms no longer restrained. Jake Morrison and Lisa Grant stood nearby, watching as technicians loaded supplies onto the vessel. We've included medical supplies, food, and water for a 2-week journey, Lisa explained. The shuttle's navigation system is programmed with the fastest route back to Vakreen space. You should arrive safely. Zekthor looked at them both with his dark alien eyes. I still do not understand why you are doing this. I am your enemy. I came to help conquer your people. Why show me mercy? Jake stepped forward. Because we're not trying to be your enemy. We never wanted this war. Your empire attacked us. We defended ourselves. But we don't want more death on either side. My people will not see it that way. Zekthor said quietly. They will see only that we lost 30 ships. They will want revenge. They will send a larger fleet. We know, Lisa said. That's why we're sending you home with a message. One of the technicians approached holding a data device. The message package is ready, Commander. Jake took the device and held it up. This contains everything that happened at Proxima Station. Video recordings, audio transmissions, tactical data. It shows the entire battle from beginning to end. Zekthor's mandibles clicked nervously. You want me to show them how you defeated us? We want you to show them why we fought, Jake corrected. There's a difference. Your high command thinks they understand humans because they watched our broadcasts and studied our culture. They don't understand anything. Lisa touched the data device. This message includes statements from survivors, people who lived through the battle. They explain why they fought, what they were protecting, what it means to be human. There's also footage from the Valiant, Jake added, his voice becoming harder. You'll see Captain Hayes on her bridge, telling her crew they were going to hold the line. You'll hear Lieutenant Carter give the order to ram your flagship. You'll see 300 people choose death over surrender. Zekthor took the device carefully in one of his 4 hands. This will not make my people want peace. This will make them afraid. Fear leads to more violence. Maybe, Jake admitted. Or maybe it will make them think twice before attacking another human colony. Maybe some of your leaders will realize that conquering humanity will cost more than they're willing to pay. Admiral Frank Holland entered the departure bay, his uniform crisp and his expression serious. Zekthor recognized him immediately and straightened to attention, a gesture of respect that transcended species. "I am Admiral Frank Holland, commander of this sector," Frank said. "I wanted to speak with you before you left." "Admiral," Zekthor said formally. Frank walked closer, studying the alien. "Commander Morrison tells me you've been cooperative. You've answered our questions honestly. You've shown remorse for what happened at Proxima Station." "I am responsible for many deaths," Zekthor said quietly. "Human deaths and Vakrine deaths. This weight will never leave me." "Good," Frank said bluntly. "You should carry that weight. But you can also use it. You can prevent more deaths by telling your people the truth. The truth that humans are dangerous. No, the truth that humans are protective." Frank's voice was firm. "We didn't attack your empire. We were mining ore and raising families. Your fleet came to us. Your fleet threatened our people. Everything that happened after that was self-defense." Zekthor looked at the data device in his hand. "My people will not see it that way. They will see only weakness. They will say we should have sent more ships, used more force." Lisa stepped forward. "Then show them the footage of the civilian transports. Show them ordinary people, miners and families fighting warships with mining equipment. Ask your leaders if they're prepared to face billions of humans who think like that." "Every human?" Zekthor asked. "Every human," Jake confirmed. "From our youngest children to our oldest elders, we're taught that some things are worth fighting for. Family, friends, freedom, home. These aren't just words to us. They're principles we'll die for." Frank pulled out another data chip. "This is a message from me to your high command. It's a formal communication, military to military. I'm giving you permission to deliver it." Zekthor took the chip carefully. "What does it say?" "It says that humanity is willing to negotiate peace. We're willing to establish borders, create treaties, find ways to coexist. But if the Vakrine Empire continues to attack us, we will defend ourselves with everything we have. And what we have is billions of people who fight like the crew of the Valiant fought." "That is not a peace offering," Zekthor observed. "That is a threat." "It's both," Frank said. "Peace is always a choice. We're offering your people that choice. They can choose to leave us alone and we'll leave them alone. Or they can choose war and learn what humans are truly capable of." Jake walked to a display screen and activated it. Footage from Proxima Station played, showing the Valiant taking devastating fire, civilian transports evacuating, mining ships improvising weapons. Zekthor watched silently, his body language showing distress. "This is what one human colony looks like when threatened," Jake said. "We have thousands of colonies, millions of ships, billions of people. Every single one of them will fight like this if your empire attacks." Lisa's voice was softer but no less serious. "And we don't just fight to win, Zekthor. We fight to protect. That's what your people don't understand. The Valiant wasn't trying to defeat your fleet. It was buying time for civilians to escape. Those mining ships weren't trying to win a battle. They were protecting each other." "This makes you unpredictable," Zekthor said. "In every battle simulation, the logical choice is to preserve your forces. But humans sacrifice their forces to protect others. My people cannot plan for this." "Then maybe they should stop planning to attack us," Frank said bluntly. "Maybe they should consider that some species are better as allies than enemies." A technician approached. "Admiral, the shuttle is ready for departure." Frank nodded. He looked at Zekthor one last time. "I'm trusting you to deliver this message. I'm trusting you to tell your people the truth. Not because I think it will definitely stop the war, but because it might, and that possibility is worth the risk." Zekthor held up the data devices. "I will deliver your message. I will show them everything. But Admiral Holland, you must understand something about my people. We are conquerors. We do not negotiate with species we see as prey, and we never back down from a fight." "Then this will be a very expensive lesson for your empire," Frank said coldly. "Because humanity doesn't back down either. The difference is we're protecting our homes. You're trying to take them. History shows that people fighting for their homes are far more dangerous than people fighting for conquest." Jake and Lisa walked Zekthor to the shuttle. At the entrance, Zekthor paused and looked back at them. "When I first woke up in your medical bay, I expected torture. I expected pain and humiliation. Instead, you healed me. You treated my wounds. You showed me kindness." His mandibles clicked slowly. "This confused me more than anything else. In Vakrine culture, weakness is punished. Enemies are not shown mercy." "We're not weak," Lisa said firmly. "We're strong enough to choose mercy." "That's not the same thing." I am beginning to understand this, Zekthor said. Your kindness is not weakness. It is confidence. You are secure enough in your power that you can afford to be kind. Jake smiled slightly. That's probably the best analysis of humanity I've heard from any alien species. Zekthor climbed into the shuttle. Through the window, he looked out at them one last time. If my people choose war, I will not fight against you. I have seen what humans are capable of. I will not be part of another fleet sent to die. The shuttle door closed. Moments later, the small vessel lifted off and accelerated toward the departure bay doors. Jake, Lisa, and Frank watched it disappear into space, carrying its passenger and its message back to the Vakrine Empire. Do you think it will work, sir? Lisa asked quietly. Frank was silent for a long moment. I think Zekthor will try. He's seen the truth about us. He knows his people made a terrible mistake. Whether the Vakrine High Command listens to him or not is beyond our control. And if they don't listen? Jake asked. Frank's expression was grim. Then they'll send more ships, and we'll defend ourselves again, and again, and again, until either they give up or there are no more Vakrine ships left to send. Lisa looked at the stars. How many people will die? Too many, Frank said quietly. On both sides. War is always expensive, but surrender is even more expensive when it means giving up everything you are. Jake thought about Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Carter. He thought about 300 crew members choosing death over letting civilians be harmed. He thought about miners fighting warships with industrial equipment. The Vakrine think we're terrifying, he said slowly. They think our willingness to die for each other makes us the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They're right, Frank said. But they're also wrong. We're not dangerous because we want to be. We're dangerous because we have to be. Because we have people we love, homes we cherish, freedom we won't give up. That's what makes us human. Lisa smiled slightly. And that's what the Vakrine can't understand. They fight for conquest and glory. We fight for each other.